All right, so I think we can get started. It's 12:06. First item is approval of our minutes from October. I will give everybody a minute to take a look at those. All right, were there any additions or issues with the minutes? Then we will approve those as submitted. And then moving on to the chairman's report. For October, we spent $3,011.02. That was for personnel benefits and the restorative practices books. And year to date, we have spent $8,431.71. Our new JJC contract has been contract signature has been submitted. And that is all of the chairman's report. We'll move on to old business and an update on our fiscal year 2022 priorities. First is youth and parents. So West Aurora did part one of the parent equity workshop. That was on October 13th. And they are, that is the one I attended, correct? Yeah. So they had a pretty good turnout for that one. And then they will be doing part two in January. For law enforcement, we have no new updates. Still looking to get 3 additional game leaders. Restorative practices, the 4-day restorative practice training with pre-arrest diversion, and nothing else besides that. No new updates for expungements. And then the mental health work group. We are going to, they did meet a couple of times, and it is going to be disbanded at this time. Basically, what the consensus was is that there are already community collaborations that are taking place to work on the issues of mental health in juvenile delinquency court. Any questions on any of that, of our old business? Okay. So we can move on to new business or updates on our fiscal year 2023 priorities. First is the JJC restructure. So we have a work group for that. We're kind of struggling at this point. We have met, but we've had to reschedule several meetings, so we're not making much headway. One of the things that Julia and I have been talking about is Julia has mentioned that it has been discussed that grant funding for juvenile justice councils may be cut in the future. So we want to make sure that we are really focusing on the priorities that we have, and so that we can responsibly use the funds that we have been given, because we have not been using all of them up to this point. And so we want to make sure that we are responsibly using them, not only so that we don't lose them, but you know, if we're not using them, someone else, another county who could use them could be receiving this money. So we want to make sure that we are responsibly using our funds. And so we want to make sure that this year we are focusing on our priorities. And so we are working now on rescheduling our restructure meeting, and hopefully we'll be able to make some headway with that subcommittee. Any questions about that? The JJC symposium planning. I'm not a part of this work group. Julia, do you want to talk about where you guys are on this one?
Yeah, so this work group's had a little bit of trouble with everybody coming together. We've had kind of, we've had a meeting with 1 or 2 here and there. So between both of those meetings, we've been able to kind of come to this proposal, essentially, that we put out that survey a couple weeks ago to get some feedback as far as attendance goes, and in light of the attendance at our quarterly meeting, just to see where comfort levels were in terms of meeting in person versus or doing a symposium in person versus doing a symposium virtually. It's kind of a mixed review, although there is, I think, a couple folks who said if it's virtual, they probably would not attend. So we would have that impact, but just in looking then as well at our contract and what we can pay for out of the Juvenile Justice Council grant, it seems that we know that we can't pay for food for lunch, but we also can't use the funding for space. And so we've kind of moved towards this idea of doing a speaker series in the spring where we would do like over the lunch hours to see if we can get more participation, more individuals able to come instead of taking an entire day away. And there would be different topics for that speaker series. So looking at the topics of mental health, still focusing on reducing racial and ethnic disparities. I know we've talked a lot about in our work group about the use of data and why data is important, why we always turn to the data, possibly talking about some sort of trauma, but thinking more so from the practical lens, like how do you, what are some practical approaches to responding to trauma or being trauma responsive, and then possibly something geared towards law enforcement. Of course, we, there could be overlap there, but that's where the topic focuses have. So I don't know if that's not a word, but anyway, the topics have been proposed at this point, but we're thinking a speaker series might be a little bit more feasible for this year, just to see how well attended that would be. And we can still look into the whole CEU, CLEs, all the continuing ed credits aspects for that. But I don't know, Josh and Lark, you both are on that. Do you want to add anything or clarify anything?
No, I think you summed it up pretty well. I just, like you said, Julia, from our one quarterly meeting, it wasn't very, very well attended. And I know with so many people, taking away a full day from responsibilities is super difficult, where getting away for an hour, 11:30 to 1 is so much more feasible.
Yeah, I'll just weigh in on that a little bit. I know for those who were not present for our quarterly meeting, and Josh and Julia can correct me, but I think we had 3 people attend other than Josh, Julia, and I.
One of them was in Josh's office too, so
yeah,
we were glad to have her, but she, so 2 from outside agencies. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's something definitely to keep in mind, especially if we're going to have to work hard to get space.
Mm-hmm. And the group did also talk about some of the free space options that we have available in the county. And the well-known one, FONA, is not currently open to the public for events. So that that also contributed to the decision to kind of move more towards the speaker series, I think, as well.
Any other questions on that?
If the idea of having lunch or paying for a facility, if you had sponsorship, that would be okay, right?
We can partner and get sponsorships for that, certainly. I think the other piece to that, though, is comfort levels, right? And I think that's why we wanted to put out.
No, I'm not talking about right now, but I'm talking about future, because I think we've talked before about you could partner with the Kane County Bar Association, and it would be if we could put together a program that qualified for CLE, you'd probably be able to get a fair number of attorneys to attend.
Yeah.
All right, anything else on the symposium? Okay, so next is racial and ethnic disparities. The RED team submitted the law enforcement survey, has been distributed, and Julia has received 26 responses so far. They were unable to come together in October, but they are meeting again November 28th. Anything else on that, Julia?
No, I'll just add, we have 26 responses, but there's multiple responses for a couple departments. So that's not 26 departments, unfortunately. But I will say we're getting up there in terms of being representative of all of the departments in Kane County. So I think that was kind of one of our goals, was that we wanted at least one response from all of those departments that are serving Kane.
Anything else on that? Julie, I'm going to let you talk about the statewide committee.
Sure. So I've been keeping everybody kind of apprised of their plans to begin offering technical assistance to jurisdictions related to their racial and ethnic disparities work. So they have been, they came up with a kind of a proposal for certain criteria to use to narrow down those jurisdictions that they would select. Juvenile justice councils are kind of the prioritized jurisdictions, those jurisdictions with councils that are funded by the commission. They also want to, though, prioritize geographic location, as well as those jurisdictions with higher disparities at multiple decision points of the 5 decision points. And so the 2 jurisdictions that they have extended invites to work with initially are going to be Madison County and Lake County, followed closely by Kane County in 3rd place. So we're 3rd. So it's possible, depending on capacity, that we will get an invitation extended to us to work with them for technical assistance. I will say, just planting or putting this out there to everybody as you kind of think about this and anticipate that invitation to come. The executive director has said that it's not going to impact grant funding if we elect not to take them up on their technical assistance, but I just think with the expertise that they have, it could be a huge benefit to us to get to work with them. So that's where they're at as far as working specifically with jurisdictions and through their technical assistance. Something else that I just want to share as far as a statewide committee goes, that they were asked to share the statewide racial and ethnic disparities plan on a national call, and they were actually the only jurisdiction to get asked to do this. And they were also asked, I believe, to share it with Puerto Rico. There was another, like a specific jurisdiction, I think it was Puerto Rico, that they were asked to share the plan itself with. So I just think that's noteworthy and speaks to kind of the quality of the plan that was put together. So now it's moving on to the important piece of the implementation, of course. And so the committee is going to then start meeting on a bi-monthly basis in January, so that then there will be 2 work groups that will meet in between those committee meetings, one focusing on the technical assistance, the other one focusing on trying to address the gaps in data collection. They used statewide systems for the data collection that they submitted to OJJDP with the RED plan this past year. And we found that there were some gaps that need to be addressed. And so that there's going to be a work group that's going to look into that as well.
Any questions on any of that? Okay, thank you, Julia. And so then our final fiscal year 23 priority is our adolescent domestic battery work group. As some of you remember, we had convened this and we were meeting for a while and we kind of stalled. We were kind of at a point of trying to potentially get some legislation passed. And so we kind of stalled a little bit, and we are looking to try to get the work group reconvened. I don't know, and Lark and Deb, maybe I'll call on you for assistance of this too. The question is whether it's feasible for us to try to get it reconvened this year. Jamie was a big part of our work group, and I know, so I don't know if somebody else could. Is it feasible to try to reconvene and have someone else jump in for her spot?
I mean, we can talk to her about that, but I feel like she was really advocating on, and I know she's been so busy with the Safety Act. So I think my position would be to table it until January. I know she wanted to be a part of it. She wanted to be a part of it. That was a big thing for her with her background with domestics.
Lark, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So I know that she, as Deb said, wanted to be a big part of that. I also know that her time is pretty limited, especially with everything with the Safety Act. And so recognizing that, she may be willing to delegate this to somebody else if she doesn't feel that she could have that time in a reasonable amount of time. And I know that this was a big issue for the Juvenile Justice Council. And so I don't know whether as a council, you want to wait for her specifically or not.
And if I can add, I think it would be a temporary thing where Jamie would not be able, from talking to her, where she wouldn't be able to attend. She would look to come, when her schedule is there's availability in her schedule to attend. But I think the other piece too is we're talking about legislative changes, but we're also talking about using the adolescent domestic battery typology tool. We had talked about like what that could look like in the field with law enforcement, or there was a specific tool actually that they were that had been developed in DuPage County that's being used, that we were beginning to talk about, as well as I think keeping up with the status of the detention screening, the statewide detention screening instrument that could also have an impact on this discussion as well. So there were still two other prongs that were kind of left out there as well, that I don't know if the work group could come back together to continue that conversation.
So why don't we try, if everyone is in agreement, try to see if we can schedule a meeting before January. I agree with Lark and Deb that Jamie's time is probably going to be very precious until Safety Act comes into play. But maybe we can go ahead and try to schedule a meeting with the rest of the members and of the work group, and see if we can make some headway on the other issues that we had.
I'm just gonna throw out there, I think it's probably gonna be a little bit more difficult than we're realizing trying to schedule something before the end of this year. We're already at the holidays.
Yeah.
My availability is gonna be slim to none. Closer we get to Safety Act as well. I guess we can put every best effort
Way
forward.
to be practical, Latanya.
I can't help myself. I just can't. I just don't know. It's a great
I
goal.
second Latanya.
We've
That's a lot
got
going
a few
on.
weeks left right now. And with all the other committee members and meetings, and really being honest, when we talk about the other two prongs, the only one that we could potentially talk about is the typology tool with law enforcement. And I think you're going to have a presence probably from the state's attorney's office about kind of pushing that initiative. I have not heard any updates about the new statewide detention tool, so that does not seem to be, based upon the communications I'm getting, to be coming anytime soon. So I also question what will be the effectiveness of a meeting before the end of the year. Sorry.
It's fine. I asked for opinions on it. What if we held off till January, but worked on getting a meeting date so that we can get up and running again in January? I'm seeing a couple of head nods. Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay. All right. How about that, Julia?
No, that's fair.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on our priorities for this budget year? Okay, so then moving on to new business, Julia sent out an email that that we have our JJC site visit that is scheduled for December 5th. Julia will receive a time frame, a time schedule for it that she will send out to everyone, but it is a half-day visit. Julia and I will be there, but certainly anyone else who can attend and would like to attend, we would love to have you there for your input as well. For those who have attended in the past, the discussion will be centered around our program and policy implementation, how we are addressing racial and ethnic disparities, and identifying challenging issues. And they will give us more information as it gets closer to the date, but just again, reminding everyone that it will be December 5th. And if you can attend, please do so.
Can I just put out there too, Rochelle, that's also our pretrial walkthrough day. So if
Yeah, I
you
know.
can try to push it for the morning, because that's gonna be me, you, Lisa, so you're gonna be losing a
boy.
lot of people that afternoon.
Yeah, I just figured that out. Yes, well, after we had our meeting this week, so I was going to talk to Julia about that too.
So they, I actually do have a time frame that they had just given me since I sent these notes. I got it yesterday. I think it was yesterday. 10:30 to 2:30, with a half an hour break for lunch at some point. Does that? You're saying?
We don't have a, we didn't set a time, did we,
It
Latanya?
just said afternoon.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so Julia, maybe we can
Because they
talk.
normally break that up kind of by office, in it kind of department. We had like time slots. We might just have to be careful as to who's scheduled when. Wasn't that how they've done it in the past?
Yeah, that's what I,
Different departments.
So they offered, you're asking for the site visit, right? Not the, okay.
Yeah.
So they offered to either have us meet as an entire group or to have us, or to do scheduled visits. So we could ask for the scheduled visits. The only thing that I think we've experienced both. We've had it where we've done the scheduled ones, and then last year was where everybody came together. So I don't know if there's preferences one way or the other. I know kind of my opinion, but I don't know if others have strong opinions one way or the other. The other thing, they gave us basically the week of the 5th, and based around Rochelle, they asked for the chair and the coordinator, so it was based around Rochelle and I's schedule. So I don't know if we need to think about a different date.
so Latanya, the other
If
day,
that's even a feasible.
the other day was the 6th, which is our training.
Oh,
for-
our town
Yeah,
hall
yeah.
stuff, yeah.
So
Okay.
I chose the 5th. It will work out for me because I can, if I have to cut out maybe just a little bit early, or I can have someone else attend the walkthrough on the 5th.
I just want to put it out there.
Yeah.
So you don't know what the walkthrough timeframe is going to look like.
No.
The other thing that I can do, knowing that that'll be in the afternoon, I wonder if I can ask them to bump it up earlier. I know that they, given the circumstances, I know that they're trying to account for commuting from, I think they have a lot of staff that are going to be coming from the city. So I don't know if that's why it got pushed to 10:30, but maybe we can.
If there is any way that they could do that, that would be great if we could get it completed in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then as far as location goes, Mike Davis had offered in the past when we've done it in person, Mike Davis had offered to do it either in the conference room or the training room at the JJC. I don't know if that space works for everybody else. It seemed to work in the past.
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on that? Okay. Any other updates that we need to discuss? Okay, then if I could have a motion to adjourn,
Motion to adjourn.
a second.
Okay.
Okay, so it is 12:30 and we are done. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.